nothing under the law other than they have to use the money for what it was appropriated. I can't stop that.
Do you believe the border wall works?
No.
The president just told me that a border wall does not work. If that's the case, why does his own Department of Homeland Security secretary say in a public notice, quote, there is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers?
Here's what I can say. I can speak to what the president was very clear in saying, and also what you all have been reporting about this construction. So the facts are this is not new. These funds were appropriated in fiscal year 2019 under Republican leadership, and DHS is required by law to use the funds for appropriated purpose. That's what we're seeing. This was announced back in June by the DHS. And so, look, we believe that there are better effective ways of moving forward to secure our border and security, our border security, and we have continuously asked for Congress to act, to provide our CBP, the law enforcement at the border, to give them the resources they need to do their jobs. And so we're going to continue to call on Congress. We believe, and the president has been very clear, even when you asked him, does a border wall work? He said no. And he's been very consistent about that. We believe that we need border technology that is modernized and land ports of land ports of entry, and that's what we want to see. And that's what I can speak to. And this is something that we were required by law, and we are complying. This is an administration that does believe in the rule of law.
But why now? For instance, these funds have been available since Biden took office. Why at this time?
And the president actually spoke to this, and this is one of the things that he was saying, that he's been asking Congress to reappropriate the funds. He has been. For the past couple of years, and Congress refused. And we have to comply by law to get this done. And that's what you're seeing happening right now.
Would there be a way to continue to slow walk this and to delay it?
We have to comply by law, and that's what we're doing at this time. We ask Congress to reappropriate the funds. That's what we would prefer to see, not waste the funding in the way that they're doing it right now, that we are required to do. But they refused, and so now we're moving forward. Go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. What specific law will the administration be breaking if funds appropriated for the border wall are not used, especially because the funds go unused all the time? I mean, why not let it go unused this time?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak to the law. I would have to refer you to Department of Justice. I'm not a lawyer, but what I can tell you is that this is a law that we are complying with. We have asked Congress multiple times to reappropriate this. This is not the way that we believe is going to be effective here. We believe in modernizing the system, not actually building a wall. The president said himself he does not think this is effective, and so we're complying by law. And we believe that in the rule of law here, and we're moving forward and getting that, in following the law.
Is this the administration in some ways recognizing that using these funds at this moment will be useful in Texas?
We are complying by the law that says that we need to do this, and that's what DHS is asking for.
And how is this consistent with what President Biden pledged to do when he was elected, which is that he will not use any funds to use the border law? What will you tell?
Let's make this really clear. The facts are that this is not new, right? This is something that came from the last administration under the Republican leadership in fiscal year 2019, and we are required to do this. We are required, DHS is required to comply by the law. That's what we're doing here. And look, the president, he said this himself. He basically asked Congress to reappropriate the funds. They wouldn't do it. And so now we have to comply by the law. Now, this was something that was announced 6 months ago. DHS actually announced this 6 months ago. And so this is not new. This is actually not new.
Will this help with the situation in Texas?
We believe that a border wall is not effective. You heard that from the president when your colleague Selena asked him directly. He said, we don't believe it's effective. We have asked Congress to actually help us, use these funds in smarter, more effective ways. That's what we've asked for. They refuse, but we're going to continue to ask for Congress, especially Republicans who are holding this back, to act.
If the border wall is ineffective, why is the Homeland Security Secretary saying that it's necessary to prevent unlawful entries into the United States?
I have not seen that full statement. I know. I hear you. I'm just saying I have not seen his full statement on that. What I can speak to is for the president. The president's been very clear that he doesn't believe it's effective. He answered that question of your colleague. That's what I can speak to. That's what we're going to talk about. And we've actually said there are smarter ways and more effective ways in dealing with this. And there are. And so The president said himself, he asked Congress to reappropriate this funds for something that is more effective, for ways to do this in a smarter way as it relates to border security measures. They refused. This was announced back in June, and now we're moving forward.
And he said in 2020 as a candidate, so after this law was passed in 2019, that there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. How can you say that he's not breaking that promise?
Well, what I can say is that there's a law that the DHS is complying with. We believe in the rule of law, and that's what we're moving forward with. This was decided, as you just said, in 2019. I believe there was a different president in 2019, right? That was a Republican president who actually pushed this forward. The Republican leadership pushed this forward. And so now we're complying by the law. Let's not forget, this was 6 months ago. This was out there 6 months ago. I know you guys are asking me about this now, but this was actually not new, and this was done 6 months ago. Okay.
Yeah, but to piggyback on that, Karine, I mean, there were a series of waivers put forth last night that expedite this process. And can you help us understand, essentially, is there a deadline in the law, or why is it that this has to be used up right now? Because you all have been not thus far using these funds. So to piggyback on Nandita's question, why not continue to slow walk this if philosophically you...
Because the answer there is we've asked Congress over and over again. The president said this, to reappropriate the funds. They said no. We have to comply by the law. That's what DHS is doing. As you asked me about the environmental laws that we had to deal with, we have to comply by the law, and which requires, because we have to comply by the law, which requires the agencies to use these funds for their appropriated purpose. Now, CBP will conduct environmental and cultural resource surveys of this project, and so certainly I would refer you to DHS and CBP on the specifics of that, and also the law itself. What I can tell you is that we have to comply by the law, and that's what we're doing, and that's what DHS is doing. Again, this was announced back in June. And this is how we're moving forward. And you heard directly from the president. His stance on the border wall has not changed. He does not believe it is effective. He's been very clear about that. Again, your colleague asked him directly, and his answer was no. Go ahead, JJ.
Has the government already contracted for this project?
I don't have any news about contracts for this project or how it's moving forward. I would have to refer you to DHS on that. Yeah, Peter.
Karine, I just want to follow up very quickly. You said that it's not new, but to be clear that this was posted on the Federal Register overnight on October 4th. So just to be clear about this, the president earlier today said that he was asked, does the border wall work? He said no. But in this statement that was posted within the last 24 hours, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary says there is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers and roads in the vicinity of the border of the United States in order to prevent unlawful entries into the United States. So who's right? The statement from the DHS Secretary overnight, or the President's comments today saying they don't work?
So a couple of things. Yes, it showed up on the register today, but the announcement, this is not new. This is from 6 months ago.
Well, it is new because the waiving of the laws actually didn't happen.
But this is something that was out back, that the DHS was put out back in 6 months ago.
Well,
so they announced.
Did they waive the laws 6 months ago?
Well, what I'm saying is DHS announced this back in June that the agency would do so. They actually said that they would do that back in DHS.
Forward with it today, but the initial announcement was 6 months ago by waiving the laws. So that's what's new today. Understood. So
Yes.
the statement when
Just
he
want to
says
make sure we're
presently
clear on
was
that.
filed. So when he said there is presently, are you saying when he says there is presently, he was referring to 6 months ago or referring to the date of which it was filed?
What I can
10/4?
tell you is DHS announced this back in June, that they were going to move forward with this. That's what I can share with you. That's what I know is to be true and is to be fact. Look, I can speak for the president. The president said he was asked directly, he doesn't believe a border wall is effective.
Does he have a disagreement with his Department of Homeland Security Secretary?
What I can tell you is what the president, I want to tell you what the president said and what your colleague asked him. He said, no, he doesn't believe that the border wall is
because he's
effective.
speaking in direct contradiction to what his own
I know,
Homeland
I hear
Security
you.
Secretary
I hear you.
says.
I'm speaking for the president. I'm saying that he has said that he does not believe a border wall is effective. That's what he was asked. He has said that for some time now, and it still remains to be the case. He asked, right? He asked Congress multiple times. His team has asked Congress to reappropriate the funds. They refused to do that. We're going to comply by
Would
law.
you ask the president on our behalf then, in the absence of our ability to do that, whether he disagrees with the statement that there is presently an acute and immediate need to construct
I'm
physical
happy to take
barriers?
that back. I'm happy to take that back. Go ahead.
Karine, again on the wall, Mexico's president is saying that the plans to move forward, quote, are contrary to what President Biden had been proposing. has the president addressed this with Mexico? Have you guys, has he talked
I mean, he
to-
just addressed it
But has
in
he-
the Oval.
He's spoken to the Mexican leader.
I hear you, but that was just came out, right? I'm assuming that he just made that statement, correct?
talked to him in advance.
You guys just saw him. He was meeting with his national security advisors, right? With the new chairman. So, first of all, you heard directly from the president. He said that he does not think a border wall is effective. So you heard directly from the president on that as the president of Mexico is speaking to, right? So you heard directly from the president. I don't have a call to read out. The president has been busy meeting with his national security team. I don't have a call to reach out. As you know, members of his team here at the White House they went down to Mexico. They did a delegation and went down there and had meetings. I don't have a call to read out from the president. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. If you'll take another question on the wall. You said, quoting the president, that he did not believe that a wall was effective. And you, in your own words, said that it would be a waste. I wonder if you could talk about why a wall is ineffective for a number of different reasons, whether it's stopping drugs, stopping illegal migration.
Yeah.
Obviously, the president has voted for the Secure Fence Act in 2006, specifically talking about how it would be effective in stopping drugs.
Well, we believe, so first of all, he was asked, do you believe, let me get the exact, do you believe, by your colleague Selena here, do you believe the border wall works? He said no, right? He answered that directly. So we believe there are more effective ways of dealing with this, dealing with the border security. And so, of course, we have repeatedly asked Congress to make sure that CBP have the resources they need to do their jobs. And we think there are other ways to do that, whether it's smarter, more effective border security measures. And so, like border technology, we believe that works when you modernize that, and also land ports of entry. We believe that's what works to deal with border security. And so we've been very clear. The president's been very clear about this. He doesn't believe the border wall is effective, and that has not changed. That has not changed. We are complying by the law. DHS is complying by the law. That's an appropriation that came from fiscal year 2019 under the last administration, Republican leadership, and that's what you're seeing now.
I just want to follow up with a question about the letter that Governor Pritzker sent earlier this week. He asked for one person in the White House who deals with the president to be a coordinator for border issues, for irregular migration and how it's impacting some of these big cities. What's the White House response to this idea that he needs one person, because it sounds like he thinks that there's more coordination that needs to be happening?
So here's the thing. There are multiple folks here who deal with who have been in touch with governors across the country on this issue. You have the Intergovernmental Affairs Office, which is led by Tom Perez, and so that is someone who has kind of led these conversations with these governors and talks to them pretty regularly about the issues that they're having, an array of issues, not just this. And there are multiple other people that have been in touch with governors across the country. Look, let's not forget, we provided $1 billion to those counties, states, cities who are dealing with this issue, right? And so we've been very engaged, whether it's the governor in Illinois or the governor in New York, on how to move forward to really deal with the issues that they're dealing with on the ground in an effective way. And so that's what we're going to continue to do. It is an issue that's incredibly important to this president, and that's how we're going to continue to move forward, have those engagements, have those conversations, and figure out what ways the federal government can help them on the ground.
With the Darien Gap down in Central America, there's a lot of talks between, apparently the government of Panama is making a complaint today against the government of Colombia for not stopping off all the migration that is going through that area and apparently damaging all the natural environment there. I was wondering if the U.S. is considering any action to help either Panama or Colombia to manage the migration flows in that region.
So I don't have any new policy announcement to make at this time, but as you know, the president has had, and his team, right, whether it's DHS or State Department, diplomatic conversations with folks in the region. As you know, when it comes to migration, it is a regional issue, not just at the border in the South. And so we have consistently continued to have those conversations, those diplomatic conversations. As you know, he brought more than 20 countries to the U.S. out west in the West Coast, as you all know, to have those conversations on how we can work together. There was a declaration that was put forward on ways that we can move forward in dealing with this migration issue that we see in the region. I don't have anything new to read out, new policies to read out today. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. Just a couple on the border. First, on the timing, I understand that you've said this is in the works, that it's been out for 6 months, but specifically on this notice coming out last night, is it at all related to the funding request for Ukraine that the administration has been pushing for, given what some House Republicans are saying, that they want border money right now, that they want more focus on border security? Is this some sort of, we will put this out now so we can make more of an effort to get the Ukraine funding?
Look, I wouldn't connect the two. I think, again, the president has said multiple times as answering why now, the president multiple times has asked Congress to reappropriate these funds. They wouldn't do it, and so we're moving forward. This is nothing new. This was announced by DHS about 6 months ago, back in June, and that continues to stay the case. Look, as it relates to the border and what Republicans are asking for, we believe one action should not be dependent on another action. It should not be. We've been very clear. In August, the president told Congress we needed up to 4,000 more troops to support border operations, resources, equipment, and overtime to support the operations of 24,000 more customs and border protection, 39,000 more detention beds, new technology to prevent cartels from moving fentanyl. And Republicans failed. They failed to act. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier this week, there were 2 weeks ago, they put forth a CR that proposed cutting the DHS to 8%, which would remove law enforcement at the border, which would make our border less secure. And so, those two things, Ukraine funding, and that should not be linked. We have seen bipartisan support in both chambers for Ukraine funding, and that's what we believe we should be moving forward and continuing that funding for Ukraine. And we've been asking the GOP, House Republicans in particular, hey, to take action, right? To take action in helping us become partners with us in dealing what is happening currently at the border.
You've said many times that the president many times has asked Congress to cancel or shift these funds toward more effective uses at the border. How has he specifically done that? Has that been through formal budget or funding requests? When did that happen?
So I don't have the exact timeline of when those happened.
Can we get that?
I certainly can ask our Office of Leg Affairs. Certainly, his team works on that, and so I'll ask the Office of Leg Affairs.
And this appropriated funding from 2019, does that have an expiration date?
I don't have the timeline or the date on if there's an expiration. I would refer you to DHS on that particular question. But again, we are complying by the law on this. Okay, Joe.
Could there be future border projects from the same amount allocation of funding that was appropriated in 2019? I mean, is this the end of it?
Look, I don't know about any additional funding from the fiscal 2019. I can speak to this right now as it relates to the structure that we are being compelled by law to have to deal with. Anything specifically about border or what's next or how they're moving, I would certainly refer it to DHS.
And real quick, back on Commander, where exactly is Commander the dog right now? Is he in Wilmington?
I'm not going to go beyond
Okay.
saying that he's no longer on campus.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Phil, in the back.
Thank you. You've reiterated that the president's position is consistent when it comes to the border wall. His DHS secretary previously said in 2021 that he was against the border wall. As plenty of my colleagues have pointed out, he has recently said that there's an acute need. It seems that his secretary has changed his mind. So will the president, or has the president inquired what caused that evolution?
Of what caused the evolution of?
Mayorkas' opinion when it comes
Well,
to
you just heard from the president. I'm not going to get into.
Well, is he curious perhaps what Mayorkas saw?
I'm just saying that you just heard from the president. He was asked directly the question and he said no. I don't have.
Two questions on two different subjects. One, is the issue with the border wall funding the same issue that caused former President Trump to get impeached the first time when he wouldn't spend money that Congress told him to spend for Ukraine? Is it the same? If you were not to spend the money, would you be facing the same sort of threat that the former president did?
You would have to do your research and look into that.
Karine, I understand you're saying that DHS is complying with the law, but to do so, the president is not keeping his promises or his commitments to the immigrant community, to environmentalists, because he's waiving environmental laws to build this wall. Is there any concern that he's not keeping his promises?
The president is always working to keep his campaign promises. You've seen that in many other policies and issues that he's worked on. He's complying by the law. He's following, certainly we believe in following the rule of law. And that's what he's doing here. It is as simple as that.
Is he concerned about this border issue? Because it does look like he's backtracking on a promise.
He's been very clear. He even took the step to ask Congress to reappropriate the funds. That's how much he did not want these appropriated funding to be used, right? And so they wouldn't do it. He took that step. They wouldn't do it. Now DHS is complying by the law. We're following the law here. It's as simple as that. We are following the law.
So on President Biden's first day in office, January 20th, he posted a proclamation in the Federal Register where he halted all funding that was being redirected to build a border wall. And he also ended the national emergency on the southern border. Also, in the first paragraph of that proclamation, he asked for a careful review of all resources that have been appropriated to the southern border wall. What was the result of that careful review?
Don't have an update on the review, but happy to actually talk to the team, and we can work with you on getting the result of that review.
It's been 2.5 years. Was part of it
I totally
the decision
understand.
in June to restart construction on that section?
I totally understand. You're asking me for a review. I'm not going to make something up from here, so I have to figure out from the team what came out of that review. So don't have an answer on that review that you're asking about from the first day of the president's administration. But I will also add that first day the president put forth a comprehensive immigration reform, right? To reform the system, to fix a broken system that has been broken for decades. Every president has had to deal with the immigration system, a broken immigration system. I don't want to say every president, but the last few for sure in the last 20 years. And so the president took that very seriously. He put forth a piece of legislation. It was his first piece of legislation, right? That's how seriously he took it. And then when Congress wouldn't act, he took action. He took action to make sure that we had CBP, more additional CBP, 24,000 CBP folks on the ground by the border. That's something that he did, make sure there was record funding. And he recently, back in August, as I just listed out moments ago, asked for more from Congress, and Republicans refused to act. Look, that is how seriously this president has taken it. Of course, there's always more work to be done. Since May, we have returned sent away or sent back more than 300,000 migrants who came here undocumented. And so that shows that our commitment to the border, and that shows a commitment in making sure that we try to work in a system that is broken. Okay, way in the back. Way in the back. Go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Two questions on the border wall.
Sure.
First, just to clarify, the White House says that it's doing this only because it has to, no other reason, like a surge in border crossings or pressure from other Democratic leaders?
DHS was required to use this funds for their appropriated purposes to comply with the law. That's what they were required to do, and we're going to continue to call on Congress to take action, to work with us on dealing with border security, to make sure that we find smart ways and more effective ways to deal with the border, and that's what we're doing. And that's what we're going to continue to work on. We've done that as recently as this past August. We've asked for $4 billion in supplemental funding to deal with the border, and we need Congress here. We need Congress to work with us on dealing with the issue that's happening at the border.
Why is the administration waiving laws to expedite construction if the border wall is ineffective?
I answered that question a couple times already. I'll answer it one more time for you. This is something that the DHS had to take a step forward in complying with the law. That's it.
Thank you, Karine. Thank you, Karine. As a candidate, President Biden didn't say there will not be another foot of wall constructed that except what was appropriated in 2019. He said there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. So something changed. What?
You want us to break the law? Is that what you want? You want us to not comply with the law?
I'm not. I'm
But
asking
you want,
about.
but you want
he
us
was
to not comply
declarative.
with the law. You want us to not be in administrations that follow the
You
rule
guys
of law.
do this all the time. The student loans, the student loan forgiveness program. You went to court to fight for that. If this is such a problem, building 20 miles of wall, why not just go to court?
We went to Congress. The Congress appropriates the funding.
Why not
Congress,
fight them more?
Congress appropriates the funding. We asked them to not use that funding for that particular purpose. They denied it, and now we're complying with the law.
If you have to build a border wall, but you don't think that it's going to work, then once it's done, are you just going to tear it down?
I'm not getting into hypotheticals from here. I'm just telling you what I can tell you from here. The facts are that DHS is complying with the law. This is from this was under fiscal year 2019 under Republican leadership, and DHS is required to do this. The president asked multiple times of Congress to reappropriate. They did not, and we're not complying by the law. Thanks, everybody.
It's anti-democratic to blackball major newspapers.
My question about Afghanistan.